How's it going, everyone? It's Ben Falcon's Media Corner back again with a brand new video for today. Welcome back to another double movie review, aka After I Saw review video for today. For this new double aka After I Saw review video for today, it's going to be my review on two films that were released this year by Lionsgate, which one of them is a survival thriller and the other is a supernatural horror film. So we're going to kick off with the first one, which is a survival thriller film, and that film is Fall. Now, this was directed by Mann and tells the story of two best friends named Becky and Hunter, which for their lives, they ultimately conquer their fears and push themselves to the limit when they do climbing together, which basically they like to climb mountains and rocks and stuff like that. And this film mostly focuses on the character of Becky because for her life at the moment, it's not going well for her at the moment because she went for a few years ago, she went through a horrible tragedy with her husband who died in an accident, and people who are close to her are trying to give her support even though she doesn't get much support and she feels like she just wants to give up everything she does. Like, the ones who try to give her support are mostly her father, played by Jeffrey D. Morgan, and her best friend Hunter. And for Hunter, she decides to basically encourage Becky to join along with her to do this ultimate challenge, which the challenge is they're basically about to climb this 2,000 feet remote abandoned radio tower in the middle of nowhere. And Becky, of course, agrees to do it, so they both climb to the very top. And once they get to the top, they find themselves stranded with no way down. Like, there's no ladders. There's no ladders to help themselves to get down from the tower or anything at all. And for their climbing skills, it's been pushed to the test, where they basically have to try and survive this whole situation through the elements, lack of supplies, and vertigo-inducing heights. So that's pretty much the story of Fall. Now, this one did look pretty interesting to me, since this one is a survival thriller. And when it comes to survival thriller films, well, I haven't seen every single one of these kind of films, but I have seen a few before these in the past, which some of them have been pretty good for me and all that. And there's a few that I haven't seen, which a few of them I've heard have been kind of misses and all that. And nowadays we don't really get much of these kind of films and all that. But when I saw the trailer for this film, this one did look pretty, like I said, interesting to me, but I just didn't even know how this one was going to land for myself. And obviously I didn't expect this film to be terrible. I was expecting this one just to be either sort of decent or sort of solidly enjoyable. And for the people who are behind this film, I didn't know much of the cast except for Jeffrey D. Morgan from The Walking Dead, and for the director of this film, Mann, I haven't seen much of his works though. But anyway, this movie was released in September in my area, because this movie was released back in August in the US. And I didn't see this movie on opening day because there were some other things I was seeing at the time. And I was trying to see this film once I didn't have a day off work and all that, but work was I kept getting more shifts for September and all that. But luckily I managed to get a chance to see this movie once I had a day off work. So I went to see it just a couple of days after it was released, and I still have my ticket for the movie right here, which I have right here. And I'd like to say to my View Cinema, thank you so much for getting me my free ticket for this movie. And after watching this movie, I got what I pretty much expected for this kind of film. This one was pretty much I had a pretty good solid time here with Fall from beginning to end. Like, this movie has pretty much got what you expect, really, for a survival thriller like this one. Like, it's got moments where it has, like, close call moments and shocking moments, which those moments are actually pretty enjoyable to watch, and they're pretty well directed by Mann, which his directing talent for this movie was pretty nerve-wracking to watch when it comes to those moments, which it wants to get you on the edge, which those moments it just majorly wants to get you on the edge of your seat, or just mostly going to get shocked out of your skin and all that, while you see these characters trying to survive while they're stuck at the top of this radio tower they've been climbing and all that. And you just basically are just rooting for these characters, where you just want to see them getting down safely without getting themselves killed or even attacked. And speaking of attacked, there's a bunch of vultures in the film, so keep an eye on that while you watch this movie. There's a bunch of them in this movie. And speaking of directing moments, there's one directing moment in this film which I kind of found a bit of a distraction, and it's kind of a nitpick I have with this movie, is that in the opening scene, there's a noticeable green screen, which that to me was kind of a distraction when I was watching the film. That's one of the weakest aspects I do have of the movie. And when it comes to the acting performances in the film, everyone was pretty solid for the characters in the film, and I did find the character developments quite investing enough and all that. And when it comes to the characters, for moments where they have their own plot line of their own, the main story of itself, it is pretty much what you expect, really, and it's kind of interesting to watch. There are some side stories in the film which, like for the characters and what they're doing and all that, which I kind of found those moments a bit melodramatic and all that, which to me I kind of felt was a bit unnecessary to be in this film. And also, so there are some pacing issues here and there, which despite the film being an hour and 45 minutes, I kind of wish a few minutes could have been cut short. And if there was not much scenes that just felt really melodramatic to watch, while it's not focusing on the main story itself. When we get to see two women who are stuck on top of this radio tower and trying to survive, and hopefully they can get down without getting themselves killed or injured and all that. But in the end, guys, Fall, it's pretty much got what you expect really for a survival thriller, and this movie's just made to be, just a fun popcorn flick here. And if you're a fan of like these kind of survival thrillers or any movies that has something to do with like any fear you face and all that, like heights or anything like that, this one will probably be a good watch for yourselves. And if you miss a chance to see this in cinemas, it is available to stream on any app of your choice. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Fall. I'm gonna give Fall 3.5 out of 5. Now let's move on to Pray for the Devil. Now, Pray for the Devil is another horror film that 2022 has released, and this is directed by Daniel Stamm, who has made a few horror films before, so he's now made another horror film here. And the story of the film is that the Roman Catholic Church combats a global rise to demonic possession by reopening schools to train priests into doing exorcism. Although nuns are forbidden to do this ritual thing, a professor sees Sister Anne's gifts and he agrees to train her. And while she's on the spiritual front line, she soon finds herself in the battle to basically save this young girl's soul from this demon that's possessing her. And in fact, this is the exact same demon that has possessed her mother years earlier. So she basically has to figure out ways to basically save this young girl from this demon that she has known who possessed her mother in the first place. So that's pretty much the story of Pray for the Devil. Now for this one, I just honestly did not know what to expect from this one, because once I saw the trailer for this movie, I just didn't even know what to expect from this one, because I didn't even know was this going to be a bad watch or was this going to be an okay watch for myself. But when it comes to exorcism horror films, lately the ones that we've been getting over the last few years, some of them have been pretty bad. Even though there's a few good ones like we've had before, namely The Exorcist being one of them, which is easily the best of them all when it comes to these films, which, for that film, it's considered to be a classic horror film. And there's even one which I actually think is pretty underrated, which that's The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which I enjoyed that one. Those are the ones I like, but the most recent ones that we've been getting over the last few years, some of them have been pretty bad for myself. And like I said, this movie was released on the 28th of October, but I didn't see this on opening day because I went to see a few other things, which first thing I saw was Bros, then I went to see Barbarian, which I went to see on Halloween. And so I went to see this movie just 2 days after Halloween, because I had nothing really else planned. Plus, I do like horror films and all that. And so once I got to my screening really wasn't much of a full house, because there was barely any people in my screening. There was just a little amount of people in my screening and all that, but yeah, there wasn't really much of a full house. And after watching this whole movie, I just pretty much got what I expected from this kind of film, because overall I just found this film pretty much being really generic and overall just really boring. And this is easily another horror film of 2022 that I can consider this one being really not all that good here. Like, this film just pretty much lacks any creativity here, because for what it's trying to go for what it tries to add something new here, I feel like this film didn't add anything new here, because it just pretty much follows the exact same rules from when it comes to exorcism films. Because lately, when it comes to these kind of films, the ones that we've been getting, they've pretty much been following the exact same rules, and they just completely fail it whatsoever. This one is definitely another one that's just done that here. Like, where it tries to set up and all that, and like where it's set and all that. Like, while the setting for the film, I did kind of find it sort of unique, where it's basically set in the Roman Catholic Church, where it's basically sort of like a school and kind of prison thing. It did look pretty unique, but the way this film is set up as, where things start to pop up, where it starts to pop up and all that, I just immediately knew what was going to happen and all that through like the scares in the film, like the jump scares in the film, they were not effective and they felt very false, and I just immediately knew they were coming from a mile away. And when it gets to any like scary moments outside jump scares for like tense moments, they weren't even that scary. And this movie also has some CG in the film, when we get to see the demon in the film and some other CG effect moments for when it has some like scary moments, which those moments were just generally bad. And the script for the film, I just found the script for this film pretty terrible and generic for the lines of dialogue, what the characters are saying and all of that, which they didn't immediately want to make my ears drop off my head or anything like that while I was watching the film. I was just kind of like rolling my eyes, and I was just kind of like rolling my eyes while I was watching the film. And when the film is in the final act, I can just immediately tell like what was going to happen and all that. And even when it draws to a close, I just knew what was going to happen and all that. And this film also has a twist here, which I just obviously knew this film was going to have a twist and all that, because usually for these kind of films, there's usually some twists and turns here and there. But there was only like one little saving grace for this film, is that the acting in the film, the main lead in the film, I thought her acting in the film, like Jacquline Byers, who plays the main lead in the film, I thought her acting wasn't too bad, but everyone else I've kind of found their performances not all that great, and their characters I kind of found really bland through the characters' lives of what they've been given through and all that, as well as like the situation they face through, which I kind of found those moments in this film really forgettable and just overall boring. Like there's one character in the film who's a priest and asks for the main character's help, where one of his family members is possessed while she's pregnant and all that, which you're not going to remember much of that in the slides, as well as any of the characters who drop by for a few scenes here and there. Just overall in the end, guys, Pray for the Devil, yeah, it's just pretty much another generic horror film here that I just knew was going to be not that good. But yeah, I didn't absolutely hate this movie to bits. Like I said, there was only just one little saving grace this film had. It had a fine acting performance, but everything else that was surrounding this whole film, I just obviously knew what I was going to get from beginning to end. And like I said, this is definitely another 2022 horror film. I can consider this one being really not all that good. But if you're a fan of like these kind of like horror films, like supernatural horror films or like exorcism horror films, this might be one for you. But for me personally, I just don't even recommend this film in the slightest. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Pray for the Devil. And I'm gonna give Pray for the Devil 1 out of 5. Thank you guys so much for watching for my double A after I saw review on both Fall and Pray for the Devil. And let me know what you think of both of these films. If you have seen this already, you've just recently checked out both of these films. For Fall, did you have a good solid time with this, or is this not really a cup of tea? And for Pray for the Devil, did you enjoy this one, or did you just not really appreciate this film in the slightest? As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and this has been Falcon's Media Corner signing off.